Hello, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast. We're sitting on location today with special guest Robin is going to tell her story today. Hello, Robin.
Hello, Dan.
And it's cool because we're going to get some, we've had one other, Sherry came on, and we have some. The fact of the matter is the Spiritual Underground, the group that I'm involved with, is a men's group, and I don't want to limit it to that. So I'm going to make a concerted effort to bring the female point of view on the show and make sure we get that side of the story too, because it's obviously every bit as important. We want to reach out and touch as many people as we can. I do want to say a couple things I forgot to say. If you've been listening to the recent podcasts, you will hear some intro music. That intro music is by one of our fellows. His name is Darren Frank. Today's is a little bit out of a song called Individual. If you listen to the words, most of his stuff is recovery-based type of music, and also on the backside of it, I'll play like a whole song. So if you want to hang around for it at the end, you'll get to hear some of the entire songs. Also, the Spiritual Underground podcast, you can go to spiritualunderground.org, see show notes, pictures of the guests, what's coming up. You can get to a contact me page there, so you can see if you want to send me an email, give me feedback, maybe line up a chance to sit in this other seat and be interviewed and tell your story. Or frankly, if you're hurting and you're looking for a solution and you need somebody to talk to, if you'll hit that email address, I am an available person. I will see it shortly. And finally, get these commercials out of the way, so to speak. 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book that's just come out. Christopher Cohn, my mentor and sponsor, just completed it. It is on Amazon. We're going to start a movement bringing 12 steps to everybody. We've been sitting around in rooms for a long time. If you heard that podcast where Christopher and I talked the other day, we've been sitting around these rooms saying that everybody wish everybody would work these 12 steps. It's been a little hard to get that available to everybody. So that's what that book is all about. Go to Amazon, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. The author's name on there is James Christopher Cohn, and that is just like ice cream cone. That's Cone. So we got all that out of the way, and as always, thank you, Robin, for donating your time to the Spiritual Underground podcast. I'm actually really excited to hear this story, and a little apprehensive, to be honest.
Why is that? Excellent question.
Yeah, no kidding. Fact of the matter is we are dating and in a serious relationship, and I have not heard your story. So at some level, probably going to hear some things that maybe I'm not completely entirely comfortable with, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to hold any of that back, for sure. So
I won't be able to. So,
yeah. So
Full
that would answer your question about why I would be a little apprehensive. But I'm excited about hearing it. I always ask my guests to start with their current sobriety date, and then wherever you want to start from there.
Sounds good.
We will take off. Okay. Welcome to the studio, your kitchen.
Thanks for having me. Let's see, my sobriety date is July 7th, 2017, and my home group is Age of Miracles that meets on Sunday mornings at 8 o'clock. My sponsor is Jane Smith, and both my home group and especially my sponsor is just a really perfect sponsor for me, and that's been real important to find a person that I think gets me and has some of the same past that I have, to be able to relate. So why don't we start off with you asking me a question, because I just really don't want to go right into my story.
Okay. Obviously, you've had, well, maybe not, it isn't so obvious, but you've had some previous sobriety before this go around. So maybe we'll start someplace back when what actually brought you into the rooms in the first place, what brought you searching for recovery, or maybe some background on how recovery became a part of your life to begin with. How'd you even know?
How did I even know? The court system kind of brought me here. 1987, I was 24 years old, and was on my fourth DUI in 4 or 5 years. And back in that time, there weren't a lot of mandatory jail time, but at the fourth or the fifth one, maybe, I'm not even sure exactly. I was facing a little bit of jail time, and I was told the treatment might be a good way to get out of that. So I went to treatment May 17th, 1987. And what took me there was definitely the court system, but how I really hit the wall was cocaine and a lot of drug use and a lot of craziness.
Yeah.
At 24 years old, to be arrested that many times and, using a needle and the cocaine, and it was just, absolute insanity. So by the time I got to treatment, I was just really beat up and very sad and very confused. I went to Our Lady of Peace here in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was all women at that point, which was good for me because I definitely had an addiction to guys too, it would seem.
Were they poly-addicted?
Yes, certainly, at least. So I walked into treatment, and there was a bunch of girls, and there was a lot of young girls at that point. I was 24, and it seemed like a lot of the girls were about the same age. And they were, giggling and talking to each other, and I got off the elevator at the third floor, and just the thought was, oh shit, they have no idea what's wrong with me. This is never going to work. And it took me probably 10 days or so to start bebopping around and kind of going, oh, wow, there's a different way to live. I had no idea. So I really took to it like a duck takes to water, and I stayed sober for a solid 10 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Out of the gates there. You didn't stumble.
Out of the gates, yeah. I really was just thrilled that there was a different way to live. It was a hard life that I was enduring. And I had Jessica, who was 4 years old at that point, and so she was going through all this madness with me. So the guilt and shame around that, and also the hope that maybe I could just get a job and do what people do and raise kids.
So when you were in treatment, your daughter was 4.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom and my 2 sisters who were. This will tell you a little bit of craziness about my family tree, who were also 4 years old and 6 years old. So my mom and I were pregnant at the same time, which is, unusual. So, they dropped me off in a little roundabout at Our Lady of Peace, and I went in the door, and they left. Mom wasn't real happy with me. Dad wasn't talking to me. So it was a tough time. So I got out of Our Lady of Peace, and I'd lost my driver's license for a couple of years. I had to spend a few weekends in jail. So I had passes to get out for work and whatnot. But when I was, for the first 2 years, I didn't have a driver's license. I lived over in the Highlands, which is close to downtown for those folks that aren't familiar with the area. And I'd ride my bicycle down to JDAC, where the meetings were, and it was really some serious willingness at that point to do whatever it took.
Yeah, riding a bicycle.
That's,
always a sure sign when you, if they don't have biking clothes on, you usually know what is happening.
Yeah, lost their driver's license. Yeah. So after 2 years, obviously, I got my driver's license back, and I was working at a car place doing paperwork or something, and I was just terrible at it, and finally got a job as a office manager for a friend of my mom's, and worked there for a few years, and then kind of figured out that there's got to be a way to make a little bit of money, because it was tough. I didn't have any child support coming in. It was just Jessica and I. I was going to 5-7 meetings a week, sponsoring girls, a lot of service work. I was on several committees. Let's see. So what happened would be a good question, I guess.
You started to talk about the money.
Oh, yeah, the money. It dawned on me that I was really tired of being broke all the time, and that I was certainly was smart enough to make some money, so let's figure out how. And kind of an interesting story, I think. I went to the bookstore with the idea of, okay, something's going to come to me. I'm going to figure this out. And I went to
You get some inspiration?
I was looking for some inspiration, or even a book on, how to make money, which I guess would be inspiration. But really where I went was the religious section of the bookstore, and I picked up a book called Science of Mind, which is Ernest Holmes' book.
Yep.
And it talks about that anything is available to us, and we're the only thing that is in the way of our success,
Certainly.
however we define that success. And it really opened a door to me of the possibilities that I was the one that was keeping myself down. So over the next few years, I got into real estate. And the thing that changed my recovery was I started slacking off on meetings because I started making money. I used to hear a lot that the relapse was because of back problems. I got my job back, I got my car back, I got my license back. And so once I got a little bit of success, which for me at that point was not much success, I was just being, could pay the bills. I started slacking off on meetings, and then I met my second daughter's dad at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. Because you got to think, I was 24 years old. I was a needle junkie coming into AA. No, there wasn't a whole lot of women. There certainly wasn't a lot of young girls going to AA meetings. And I wasn't allowed to talk about drugs with the traditions and whatnot.
Yep. We're allowed to take a drink while
I'm going to take a drink, yeah.
Yeah.
My mouth's getting dry. So I carried a lot of shame with the drug use, and I think that has been with me for my entire life, really, the shame and the way that we grew up. My mom and dad got married when they were really young. They were 16. So Dad says he got his driver's license and his marriage license like the same week.
Wow.
Had my older sister when they were 16, had me when they were 18. So just that alone, if you don't account for any of the anger issues that my mom has or the alcoholism that my dad has, just the fact that they were so young, it was just a recipe for some disaster.
Yeah.
And luckily, my mom's dad had a little bit of money, and he bought them a house. So I was 5 years old. That would put them at about 22, let's say. 23 years old, and they were plopped down in like suburbia J-town, in this really nice neighborhood in a really nice house, and they were kids. All the neighbors were white collars. My dad owned a motorcycle shop, so there was motorcycles in the driveway. He had a big old afro, 19 whatever, 74 maybe.
Yeah, I can't imagine
70,
that.
Yeah. So we were just different, and we were looked at different. My mom and dad were smoking pot and having big parties in the backyard, and nobody else in the neighborhood was doing that. So that shame, I think, was really just we were bred for it for sure. And with my dad is a recovering alcoholic. He's been sober now for 32 years. I went to treatment in May of '87. He came to Family Week that May of '87, and he actually got sober July of '87 and has stayed sober the whole time. Yeah. So they snatched him up on Family Day.
That's interesting.
Is pretty funny story that he tells about that, because he would not talk to me. He was only talk to the counselors. He would not come in and sit in the whole family scene. So where was I?
You were looking to make money.
Okay. And then I had met
your
Bernie,
daughters,
which is my second husband, Lillian's dad, and I met him in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and found myself pregnant pretty quickly, and so we got married. He was never really clean and sober. He had a methadone habit going that I didn't know about. Because I didn't allow myself time to get to know a person before I got into a relationship. So I spent the next, I guess it was 10, 11 years dealing with his addiction. So we moved from Louisville to Nashville. That's where he had made money before. So when I left Louisville and went to Nashville, I made a conscious decision that I really just didn't want to go to AA anymore. I was 33 years old at that point, and getting sober at 24. I just figured I'd grown up. I've been through a lot of counseling, worked the steps. I was just young and stupid. I can handle this. And the reason why I can't really say, did I stay sober, like, was it 9 years? Was it 10 years? Was it 12 years? It's because it didn't get bad for a long time. I moved to Nashville, and I really just switched my addiction. I call myself an alcoholic because I find recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous, but the truth of the matter is I'm an addict, and I could use just about anything to cover up my feelings, and I've switched addictions quite a bit throughout the years. So in Nashville, my focus was on Lillian staying safe, trying to get my husband to work, and then when that didn't happen, I went to work. And I ended up being a pretty successful sales manager for builder in real estate, made tons of money in my little world, and really liked the accolades and the awards and the award dinners, and that's when the alcohol started creeping in. So I was probably 3 years into Nashville before I started picking up every once in a while, and I just have a glass of wine, and I go, I better not do that, just like that little bit of AA, little bit of 10 years of AA will scare the shit out of you,
Yeah, that other thing about it certainly messes up your drinking.
Yeah.
It's hard
until
to
you
have
start
a drink.
drinking enough, and then
you're
not thinking about that. So I would drink a little bit of wine, get a little bit of this, that going on, and then just get afraid and back off of it. And it really probably wasn't until I divorced Bernie when Lillian was 10 years old. And for the first time, I was in Nashville, so I didn't have no family around to watch me, no AA people that I was afraid I was going to run into at liquor stores like I did when I came back to Louisville.
Right.
And I was successful, and I could lean back on that. I could lean back on the nice house and the nice car and the awards and whatnot. And then you do what they say, which is cross that line of no return. I had a knee replacement, got into some opioids, some Percocet, Oxycontin at first, which it's a good thing they took that off the market. I'm not sure I would have made it if that was as available as Percocets were.
Yeah.
So I just played with that for the next few years and didn't really hit the wall until I got another DUI in Nashville. Decided to move back home because my third husband was having an affair with his ex-wife, which never works out.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter was pregnant with Mia, who's my now 9-year-old granddaughter, and I wanted to get back home. I was getting afraid of my use and the trouble I was going to get myself into. So I came back home to get sober, and got here October 2009, and made my first attempt to get sober, since the late 90s. In February of 2010. And I'd stay sober for 6 months or 10 months and then go back out. And I always am hesitant to tell my story on the recovery side because I feel pretty sure I don't know a whole lot. And the reason why I say that is, you hear in the rooms people say, I know I've got another drunk in me, but I don't know if I have another recovery.
Right, yeah.
And there was a time when I thought, well, that's just bullshit. I mean, why do people even say that stupid shit?
Yeah.
And then I find myself trying to get sober, and it's so hard to get sober the second, the third, the fourth time. And this last time that I came back, I'm looking at 2 years in July, I know exactly what they're talking about because I don't know that I would be able to crawl back in a next time. And I'm not sure exactly what the psychology is behind that, but for me, it was just getting the gumption to try. It was just hard to get up, and the thought of
I think it goes. We say that there's the thing in the book. It says it's always worse, never better. Mm-hmm. I think that also comes from I think that's statement also applies to coming back. It just continually gets worse and worse every time to get back in the room and get some traction in recovery again. At least that appears to be what I see.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that for sure, because it really took every bit of gumption that I had to get myself back in the room and to stay. And the thought of suicide was not a new thought for me for sure, but it was a more serious thought this last round.
Yeah, way out.
Yeah, it's like just, screw it, I'll just die drunk. That's okay. Or I'll kill myself, which I never really was very serious about it. I had a couple ideas on maybe how I would do it, but I didn't want it to be messy. I didn't want my kids to find me.
I could never find like a good way to do it, one that would work where the insurance would still pay off and nobody would find me and be too traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never could find a way that would work.
Yeah, I call it passively suicidal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to disappear. Really, just wanted to have
so
that
I just
accident.
started smoking again.
Yeah,
just real slow.
Real slow, one cigarette at a time, one drink at a time. That kind of death.
Yeah.
So what I did different between 2009 and 2017, that's a long ass time to be trying to get sober.
That is. I didn't. That time window right there had slipped my mind. I didn't catch that as we've been talking.
Yeah, it's a long time, and I didn't stay sober for more than, I'm going to say, 9 months at a time, and then I just kind of slipped back out gradually, and.
Was it mostly on the drinking would take you back out, or was there anything in particular that would do it?
It was really the opiates that would take me back out, and it was pills. I gave up the needle a long time ago. I totally wasn't going to do that anymore. Right. And I think that was, part of my staying out for the longest time was, it's not that bad.
Right.
When you come in, balls to the wall, serious addiction issues, and using needles and the things that I did to get the drugs, the people I was hanging out with. It was just a bad scene and really, really scary. So, sitting at the Hyatt, having a couple glasses of wine, it's like,
no big deal.
Surely to God, this is not a big deal. I can handle this, right?
Or what's a few pain pills here and there?
Well, and I've had a couple of surgeries, and I'm hesitant to use that as an excuse, but I know today that my brain has no idea if I need a pill for pain or not, and it's a real trigger for me. I'm just off and running, and there's not a real thought between, I'll just take a couple of. Who does it by the prescription? I don't think anybody uses it. I don't think anybody does that, right?
Yeah, I don't think non-addicts do it.
Except that these people that have, the pills left in their bathrooms. I don't understand those.
There's not many of them in my circles left.
Yeah. Yeah, stolen a few myself. But I had a pretty good knack of finding people that had them, that would give them to me, or had them that I could buy. And so I could keep myself pretty stocked up. And then I started making doctors, and that kind of manipulation came pretty easy to me. I'm sorry to say, but there was a point where it was just pills and alcohol, cigarettes. Didn't smoke much pot, just because it made me really nervous.
Paranoid nervous?
Beg your pardon?
Paranoid nervous?
Yeah. Actually, when I got pregnant with Jessica, my first daughter, I smoked some pot right after that, and since that point on, I was just like, I just don't want to do that. It made me really uncomfortable. Yeah,
I smoked a whole lot of it over the years, but I hit a wall on it where it just wasn't working. Pot wasn't working for me anymore. Be okay for a nightcap, maybe, if I wanted to allow me to help me get shut down for the night. But then it just became something I just didn't want to do at all and I quit it.
So did it make you tired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then that's not what I was ever looking for. I was always looking for drugs that would help me continue drinking.
Right.
Now, I didn't want anything that would shut me down. Now, but at the end of the night, when it was time to go down, because of the same, I don't know, I really had a hard time finding that last beer or that last drink of the evening. There would still be one more,
right.
one more. And that would force me over the edge. If I just smoked a little pot, then that would push me over the edge, and I'd like to tell you I went to sleep.
Yeah.
Pass out.
I'm a real blackout drinker, so I never had that problem with that last one. I just, I'd pass out someplace and wake up and
be gone.
And it's a scary thing to wake up and not. My girlfriends used to joke about, I don't remember this wallpaper. Where am I?
It is scary.
It is really scary, and walking around my car to see if there's any dents in it. Walking outside to see if my car is there.
Yeah, where you're at,
mm-hmm.
and I can't imagine. It's one thing to wake up in a room you don't know where you're at, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, to wake up in a neighborhood you don't know where you're at or something.
And how you get out?
Yeah, how do I get out?
Because you're sneaking out, right? You're not waking anybody up.
Yeah, and a few years ago you didn't have these phones. These things haven't been around that awful long where you could say, "Take me home."
Yeah. One of the last blackouts that I had before I got sober, in 2017, I was in Las Vegas and started drinking early in the day. And I was the type of drinker that, they call it pregame. Well, I'd pregame, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm drinking way before anybody else knows that I am. So I'm blacking out at 8, 9 o'clock at night. And going for a long time after that. So, what happens between 8 o'clock and 2 a.m., there's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah.
Waking up with burns and bruises and having no idea where they came from. And one blackout in Las Vegas, I ended up in a room, and I didn't know anybody in that room when I woke up, and I didn't have any clothes. I didn't have any clothes in the room that were mine. So I don't have no idea how I got there. And I didn't know what my room number was. So I, got a robe on and had to go down to the front desk. And I mean, it was just like,
what room am I in?
What room am I? And you know how you look.
Yeah.
We look all cute at 7 p.m. Come 2 a.m. It's not a pretty sight at all. So it got really scary because I'm old enough to know better, and I know what happens, and I know that I've put myself into some situations which I'm real fortunate to have gotten out of safely, as safe as I did.
Yeah.
The biggest thing about my recovery today that I'm enjoying so much is trying to be in the middle of AA and you guys say it all the time, participating in my recovery. I'm such an isolator, and when I'm using them isolating, I've said this, I think, to you for sure. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah, and I heard a guy, there's a guy was on Joe Rogan's podcast the other day. I think the person that I heard that on a TED Talk was the first time I've heard it, a guy named Johan Hari.
Oh, really?
Hari, Hari. He was on Rogan the other day.
Well,
and
I don't know how he got addiction. That from me.
I don't know whether he started. We say in recovery circles though that nobody. It's kind of like comedy. Nothing is really new. It's
recycled. For sure.
Recycled stuff all the time. But yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm. The opposite of addiction is recovery.
Is connection. Of
addiction is connection. Certainly.
Yeah.
I found that to be true.
Yeah, for me, it's connection with other people. I'm such a hider, meaning that I don't want people to see who I am, and I can fake just about anything at any time and be whoever you want me to be. And I say that, but it's really uncomfortable for me to do that. So I usually just kind of just check out. I'll just go home, right? And I can go home and be by myself and be fairly happy, or so I think. But I isolate long enough and I start picking up something, whatever it is, whether it's the money or the drugs or the alcohol or a combination thereof. And then, of course, the connection to my higher power, which is, I think I was probably, I'm going to say 7 months sober when I turned around and it was like, I don't have a desire to drink. Yeah. I don't have a desire to use. It makes me want to cry right now thinking about it. For the longest time, it was such a fight, just a horrible fight that I couldn't win. Yep.
I had a sponsor say that to me today for the first time. That he said it to me. I was on the phone with him earlier, and he said that he had smelled somebody was smoking pot, and he had like a flash for a second. And he said, I realized I had absolutely no desire at that point to join, to help, to use anything.
It just wasn't. It's just not there.
Just not there.
Yeah, it's not a fight. It's not even a thought process.
Until like it came by and was like an option for a second, You know what I mean? It was not that it was a real option for him, but he smelled it. Somebody was smoking it in his vicinity. And, until he actually processed that, no, I don't want that. Mm-hmm. And then like almost surprised that, hey,
I don't even want that.
Who said that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a new way of thinking. Mm-hmm. That's really a miracle. That is the thing. It's one day when you just don't want it anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. And going to meetings, I do think about the chronic relapse, and why that happens. And I don't have an answer to why it happens, but I know the things that I do that will let it happen. And for me, it's not going to meetings. If I don't go to meetings, then I'm just not reminded of that wound that I have that needs to be cared to. And I talk myself into, I'm okay. I can look around at my life and go check, 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 check. Therefore, I'm okay.
Right.
And going to meetings and working with people, sponsoring people is such a gift, and it gets me really emotional to think about the opportunity that I have to help some other women.
Yeah.
And I can relate. I've been through a lot. I've put myself through a lot. My addiction has put me through a lot of situations. So there's not too many women that I've met that come across with something I hadn't heard of or hadn't done, or
like it says, our darkest assets, or our darkest moments are our biggest assets around here now, because we get to use those magic words. To me, the magic words are Me Too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's that whole Me Too movement out there today.
Well, that's true.
About that. But truth of the matter is people, we come in here thinking we're dragging stuff in that nobody else has ever done. And here you can sit as a recovered person with that smile and glow and say, yeah, me too. I did that too. And, that lifts that shame off of people pretty quickly at times, that when they know that they're not, they're not alone in this.
When you see that light go off of, really? You did that too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I actually, I don't want, okay, so you got to be a little bit careful about it, but I did a fist step with a guy not too long ago, and I started getting to feeling like I was a bit disingenuous with how many Me Too's I was possibly able to toss out. I smiling at, I smile upwardly, for whatever reason. That's my higher power kind of direction or whatever, and I'm like, really? As I gaze up, we're going, so we're going to line up, me and this guy's going to line up that closely, and everything he's done, I can almost say, yeah, I've done that too, man.
And you really have. You're not just saying that
to
make somebody feel good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as far as, the higher power, I've got some specific ideas for my higher power today that are really comforting. And one of the best things that I think about as far as the steps go is just trying to clear out the crap between me and my higher power, because I know that the only limitation is myself, that God really does want me to have everything that would make me happy and make me useful.
Absolutely.
And the only way that I can get there is to go to meetings, work the steps, clean house, and I just get some more clarity, and it's never ending. And I think one of the things I've got to be careful of is I'm not going to graduate. This continuing spiritual growth is what I strive for today, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy being a seeker and being a helper, and don't, that resting on my laurels is just, thankfully, not a goal anymore. I thought I would arrive, and we don't. As humans, we don't.
Those stumbles, relapses, slips, whatever people want to call them, that drove it home for me, knowing that when I set down the tools, if I don't stay at this, I have a history that tells me what I do.
Right.
Now, one thing about it is going in, and that's one of the things about coming to meetings and staying. Some people say keeping it green, so that I'm around newcomers a lot, and I see people struggling and that kind of thing. Helps me remember, because I know that's another thing that people think that's actually that's one of the big things about getting away from meetings. If you stop, it's not so much that I've stopped going to meetings. That's probably not really it. What it is that because I'm not around other people who are struggling, I forget I got this.
Right.
My ego returns. And there's somebody there's a saying about their ego. You've said it, I think, is the disease.
I got nothing.
Can't remember, but it's something about the ego coming back. and I began to think I'm okay again.
Right.
You know, and you said that earlier. You thought it was okay to get the drink of wine. You know.
Well, yeah.
Even though inside your belly or whatever, inside your heart, you knew that wasn't. I remember something that really bothered me was to sit with that can of beer. I can remember I have a plain as day remembrance of sitting after having some recovery and then going back out and playing sober, hiding it then because I didn't want people to see me,
Full-time
right?
job, right?
And have that beer and know that I have this beer in front of me and know that when I open that beer up, that, you know, it's like a Pandora's box thing.
Right.
I really don't know where I'm going after I do that. But like the insanity of the first drink, what it used to be like before I knew what the insanity really was. You know, I didn't understand it, right? There's a part of the time I didn't have any idea. I look back, I go, I had no idea that when I drank that first beer, that I was not going to stop until something stopped me.
Yeah.
That day, that night,
times.
whatever, might be weeks, might be years. You know, but then once I knew what that first drink was, and I sit there with that beer in my hand, and I hadn't cracked the top of it, and then, you know, I remember like bending it up a little, bend the tab up a little bit, and then like stop. And then finally you just go and pop it open and take a big drink of it, you know, and then, you know, and quickly squash in my head, do my best to squash that knowing of what this really meant.
Yeah. And you have 3 or 4, it gets a little bit easier.
You know, off. But by that time I was not enjoying it anymore. It just really wasn't working. I'd drink one and then it didn't, you'd get me, you know, and another and get some whiskey or get whatever and keep on trying to search for that one more that was actually going to get me where I wanted to be.
Yeah, it just stops working and thank God it does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because after that last blackout that I spoke of, I started staying home just drinking by myself.
Yeah, because it's too scary.
It was too scary to go out, and it was just a matter of time. I was going to get arrested again because I got another DUI here in Louisville. So I don't know. That's somewhere
like
between 6, 7, 8. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, you couldn't have a driver's license today.
No, and I would have spent some time in jail for
absolutely.
sure.
Yep.
And the last time
Not to mention the risks we take on killing somebody else, or
no kidding. You know, driving drunk was one of the
jail be okay really compared to.
Yeah, the box wine. I'd put that box wine in the trunk of my car, and then I just fill up my water bottle with that wine and keep on driving. Yeah. I mean, it's insanity, and it really does not taste very good. It's pretty warm. It's nasty. The last time that I went to jail, I was here in Louisville, and I was in a blackout. Came to in the, I guess the processing room is what you would call it. And I literally came to sitting in the processing room, looking around, trying to figure out what happened. And I didn't know if I'd killed somebody. And that's the thought that ran through my head of, I might have killed somebody. And then I look around, okay, well, I don't have any blood on. I'm not handcuffed. I'm just sitting with all these other drunks.
Yeah.
And then I look across, and there's this guy on the other side, where they kept the men, and he was like trying to get my attention. I had no idea who he was, and I'm thinking, is he trying to pick me up? I mean, this is crazy. And then I get processed, and it wasn't drunk driving that time. I was actually with that guy that was across the room. He got arrested for drunk driving. I was so incapacitated they just had to take me to jail and was charged with public intoxication.
Yeah.
You know, and at this point, I own my business here in Louisville. I'd gotten locked up right down the street from my business at Captain's Quarters. There's a lot of risk. I was ready to throw everything away just for another drink.
Yeah.
The insanity.
Wow.
The other thing, as far as like going to meetings, the juice that you guys talk about now, it's just going to become my word, I guess, instead of saying
it's
your
contagious.
Words. Yeah, it is. The juice of
going
to
is
meetings.
ours.
Yeah.
The collective hours.
The hours. Okay.
The Spiritual Underground does not have a monopoly on the juice. As a matter of fact, we work very hard to try to give the juice away. It is a motto of ours: is share the juice.
Yes. You just usually share it with other men, so it's hard for us women to get into the crowd which that's okay. But part of the juice of going to meetings is finding those newcomers. You get that charge out of trying to help somebody else, and the overcoming the addiction. A lot of it is about building your life to a point where you wouldn't want to. Why would you do anything else? I mean, why would you go out and have a drink? I mean, I'm really having a good time, even when I'm
Got to have something better.
Well, you got to have something better. You got to have something to hold on to. And, for me, it's just the knowledge that it's okay not to be okay. I mean, it used to be that I had a feeling and I had to fix that feeling immediately.
Right, yeah.
And now, just the other day, I got myself all up in a wad and was really sad and knew I was sad. And it was like, okay, yeah, I'm just sad. And it'll pass.
Yeah, this too will pass.
Mm-hmm. And there was a time when, a sad morning would mean a drunk afternoon and a drunk night. And I don't have to go there anymore. Just don't have to.
Yeah.
And that's such a relief.
There was, if I was going to say, my big thing was surely stress, not sadness. It would be the overwhelming feeling of
job stress
or even family stuff or, just life, feeling like it was just weighing on me, everything, add it all up. Mom, dad, friends, kids, wife, job, all of that weighing down on me, feeling that I needed to had to be everything to everybody. And that stress built up on me, and still, and you said you had an event. I did too, just in the last couple of days of that static raising up. But today, that other option is no longer on the table. It just is not. Though I can identify that feeling that would send me to drinking.
Right.
It's just not where I go today. I've got too many other tools, and as I've said a number of times, I just ain't. I am not willing to give this up. I am not willing to give what I have today up for any fucking thing. Period.
Well, and especially for the misery of drinking. This really is the easier, softer way. It's hard for me to be a drunk. It takes a lot of effort to work and get all my stuff done and be a drunk.
Yeah.
I think Chris was talking about willpower the other day. Addicts and alcoholics, we have a lot of willpower. It takes a lot of work to get out there and
do that day
and
after
be
day.
in the madness and try to be responsible and pay your bills and do the deal.
Yeah.
Try to be a good mother and falling short, so all the shame and guilt and I know today that if I'm not actively working on my recovery, I'm actively working on my next relapse.
Right.
And there's really no in between.
That's that whole thing that a friend of mine had shared with me, and it stuck with me. You said that a minute ago. That guy pointed, and I remember because he pointed at me, and we all love to be pointed at, right? He pointed at me, and he said, and he shook his finger, and he said, "You must participate in your own recovery, Dan." Mm-hmm. Like I was wanting just to hang around with people and have it work, and so today that I take that to heart in my recovery today is actually freaking participate in it, take action, on a daily basis that keeps me there. Like you said, if I don't do that, I'm scared to death of going back, be honest. I stood there with that prison sentence and different things like that. I don't know, that book and everybody else that goes out and comes back reports that it's no better. It's still just as bad out there. Or worse. So if it's going to get worse for me now, if my next time is worse, then what does that mean, right? Well, that's I'm beginning to get up against some pretty damn big consequences if I go back out and it's worse.
No kidding. Grateful to be here.
There's you started talking about the sponsorship thing. That's those steps have to be divinely inspired. They just have to be, because all those elements in there that we had to do. Because I run into a guy last night, about talking about picking and choosing which ones of these twice last night, different things. Picking and choosing what of this I get to do. And that's another thing that I don't do today. Usually if I sit down and somebody looks like if somebody's not getting everything they want out of recovery, I can usually sit and talk to them for a few minutes and figure out what they're not doing.
Yeah.
One of the things that nobody ever does is meditate. And I shouldn't say nobody. That's not right. But a big chunk of people who are, as far as I'm concerned, leaving something on the table is that they're refusing to do that. And they'll say for various reasons why they're not. Listened to a guy last night where he was talking about the TSSR book, Christopher's new book. And
Great
this guy
book.
stood in front of me and said, well, we're doing the steps today, but we're going to skip on out and start at chapter 7. I thought, really?
I kind of like that idea, I got to say. But
I understand because step 1 starts there, but, I do the same thing about the, my recovery the same way. You know,
I know.
I know. You know, I'm not.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying is I know the first 7 chapters. I don't have to read those. I know all that.
Yeah,
I know
and what
all
I
that.
need to know all that for?
So,
Yeah, and breeze over. I just couldn't. And this guy's a pretty. You know, he's really solid. He's a staple in my recovery, you know, and I stand there in the parking lot and look at him. Did you really just say that to me? Mm-hmm. You know, the Mr. You must participate in your recovery. The Mr. Do all 12 steps, not, you know, a few of them, or maybe 2 or 3 this day or 2 or 3 that day. You're really going to stand there and tell me you're going to skip forward? And I did say something to him. I said, man, it must be good to be that far recovered.
Yeah.
So you just skip ahead.
Yeah, but, you know, going back to that, you know, the meditation, I think a lot of people do skip that, and I think a lot of people just don't know how to do it. I certainly didn't for a long time. No one really talked about it, especially in early, you know, late 80s, early 90s. It's much more popular, I think, just across the culture right now than it was.
There's a growing movement outside of recovery across the culture. Like you said, that meditation is becoming a tool that's mainstream.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that my sponsor is just really big on. She's taught me how to meditate and has gotten me to the point where I'm comfortable doing it. Yeah. And last week, I think I went like 2 days and didn't meditate. And for no particular reason, just got busy and, you know, whatever, out of my routine. And, you know, I turn around and look and I go, you know, that's not the way I want to live. I feel so much better when I'm taking the time in the morning just to, you know, the guided meditation is great, and then sitting quietly and trying to get my mind to settle. And the longer that I do that, the easier it is to sink into that spot. Yeah,
a 20-minute meditation is it's really no big deal today. I mean, it's really not.
And my sponsor tells me it's the most important thing I'll do all day long, and that's a real good thing to remind myself of. Yeah,
sets a pace for me the rest of the day. I need to do it in the morning. I meditate sometimes, other times of the day, and that kind of thing. But it's really my morning when it sets the pace. I tell a little bit of leaving the house, like you know, flying out of bed to the coffee maker, to the shower, throw some clothes on, out that door like the Tasmanian devil, you know,
right.
Spot to spot to spot, you know, and it's a little tornado between the bed and the coffee maker. And every one of them spots I visualize like the Tasmanian devil spinning in a there.
I can see
then
it.
I carry that pace the rest of the day. And I'm kind of a high energy guy anyway, period. You know, I kind of go. That meditation sets the pace for me for the rest of the day. I need that starting point like that rather than that Tasmanian devil.
The tornado through the whole day. And for me, I'm not thinking when I'm in that mode, when I'm moving that fast.
It's like a pinball in a pinball machine. I'm bouncing off of, I'm careening off of these objects that send me in directions I'm not at all prepared to get shot off into.
Yeah, I'm just reacting.
And bumpers just bing, man. I don't know which way that ball's going to go when it hits that bumper. How fast, what it's going to run into once it comes off of there.
And more often than not, you know, today I just have the sense that things are okay and I'll know what to do when I'm supposed to know what to do. I don't have to sweat it as much. You know, as far like financially, I don't have a whole lot of financial insecurity, which I've just been gifted with the this knowing that that's all going to work out for me. I don't have that same knowing with being happy, joyous, and free. But for some reason, on this money piece, it's like, that'll be okay. I don't have to worry too much about that, which is really a cool thing. I mean, I've been saying for years and years that, you know, wherever I go, money just follows me. And it's not like I have a lot of money. It's not about that at all. It's just that I don't have that fear of not having it. You know, I'm always going to be okay.
That's the way if you're living in scarcity or living with an
abundance, yes,
mindset. Which one are you know? And we think ourselves into what we have. You know?
So true.
I really like that part about you, that you have that optimism like that. I've probably spent most of my life actually with the opposite mindset. And I see that today. I'm going, you know, even when I am doing, you know, I do pretty decent.
You do really well, actually.
But but I still will think myself into thinking that I don't.
And it's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's so interesting when you stand back and take a look at, you know, we just control our emotions with this crazy thinking.
There are a couple things though that when we started off with you coming straight in, like when you came to recovery, it kind of ends up with a funny story going this way though. But I think it's worth hearing is you had some really bad accidents, right, growing up, but when you were automobile accidents before getting sober.
Oh yeah.
That really could have went, and I don't really like to. I'm not a huge war story guy, but I think some of those bigger things are worth talking about sometimes when we're behind these mics. It helps other people relate to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think about that as much anymore because I'm kind of far away from it as far as those bad car accidents that I had when I was younger.
I think just real quickly, I think what happens is most time in my experience is people focus on those war stories and they don't get to the recovery. I try not to do that in my own story, but I do understand that old stuff has some value.
Yeah.
When we're carrying this message to people who are needing that Me Too element.
Yeah, there's one car accident that I had that I really don't talk about very much. It's painful because I hurt somebody else. I was, gosh, I don't even know how old I was, but I remember I was driving my Volkswagen convertible, white, just got it all tricked out, and coming from Chi-Chi's after sitting, I don't know what that's called, but you sit in a chair and they just pour like a margarita in your mouth or something. Huh. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's not good. A lot of tequila. Driving home on a pretty curvy road, and I hit a tree on my friend's side, and she's disabled for life.
Oh, really?
From that.
Yeah, you hadn't told me about that.
I really, like I said, I don't think about it, and I've done what I can to make amends. She's wasn't real open to that, but so we hit the tree. It really messed up her leg and her a little bit of a brain injury, and I just like ate the steering wheel, which I did 4 or 5 other times as well. But after I got sober, I was probably 4 years sober, and I found her and went to her and tried to sit down and have a conversation, but she was really, really angry, and that's just an amends that I can't make to her directly. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I saw her daughter in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and that the daughter was a newcomer, and I started talking to her, not knowing exactly who she was, and then Mary walked in to get her daughter, who was probably 17, and I was so excited because I was in an NA meeting. I was going to help her daughter. This could all work out. And she still was not very receptive. Sometimes those amends are just not the greatest stories that we want them to be. Right. Well, with the willingness to make them, right?
Right, exactly. Yes. So you said it's not able to make it. And I know those are... I'm struggling with English language stuff here lately because the words don't work that well for me. For some reason, I got some hang-up thing. But we make them. It's not
well received.
Ultimately, it's not between me and that person. It looks like it is really, but really the amends is between me and my higher power. And if I'm making if I'm making the effort, I'm willing. I go through, and take the action. If it's, because sometimes, we can't even get to the person, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And just because you can't get to them in my teachings doesn't mean I can't do the amend. That I can't get okay with my higher power on this. That's really where I'm balancing. That's really where I'm balancing the scales.
So you're talking like a living amend at that point, that you're, to help other people and to...
Potentially, I'm not, I think that living amends to me is more of like step 12. I think more of that is like practicing these principles.
In all of our affairs?
Yeah. But no, I can do other things to, because the book always says I have to be willing and I have to do that work, So, I have amends cocked and ready that I've done the work with in the way that my sponsor prescribes to do it. With what we do is 8-step prayer work on forgiveness stuff, both directions. And then I make a harms list. I then write a script.
Right. And
I am prepared to make this amend. Now, the thing is, if those people will talk to me or not, it's not my problem. So I have some amends where people won't talk to me. And I've done my part. I feel clean on those. Other ones where I've written a letter that never got delivered.
Right. Yeah. I've done that.
I did one amends where I wrote the letter and I read my letter to my sponsor. And I fog up thinking about that because I didn't know what that was going to do that day. That I was writing this amends to somebody I couldn't do direct amend with. But reading that to my sponsor was some like fifth step, kind of like admitting to myself, to God and another person kind of thing in a way, and getting free of that. So it really drove home the matter to me that other person, although there are some benefits at times, that other person gets let off. Maybe somebody gets let off the hook for something, that is taking some blame for your stuff or something, or you patch up an old relationship, or so there's some collateral benefit.
Yes,
that can come from an amend in that case, and that is juice when it happens, right? I mean, that gets back into that connection thing rather than the addiction, because now you've reconnected with somebody and patched up a rough spot or whatever. That's magic. But that no means, in my lineage and teaching, does that put whether if amends was actually made or not.
Yeah, I got the self-centered part of me just wants to be forgiven.
Yeah, right.
That's my ego just really wants to be forgiven.
I've had an opportunity where I had a sponsee that it was in my heart that he not see these people, because I think it wasn't
the right thing to do. And I've definitely, when I made that decision with my sponsor of, like this person and this person, I'm just going to do more harm by going to those people. That was easy, but the ones that I've wanted to make and they're resistant have been a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and especially family members and people that you're close to. Certain ones, but those are I can't imagine like that particular one where you actually harmed somebody. You've had physically, you have caused somebody physical permanent damage.
Physical permanent damage
is something that man, I'd really want to be able to make that amend directly with the person, and I would want them to forgive me.
Right. And then the other side of that, I was in a car with a girlfriend, and she was driving, and we had an accident and really busted my leg up, and put some pins in my leg, and they wanted to take my leg off for a half minute before my mother just stopped that nonsense. And I don't hold her responsible for that. I mean, she was driving, she was drinking, I was drinking. Same situation as with Mary.
And your friend was drinking also.
Yeah, and so interesting that I'm so. It's very easy for me to let someone off the hook for doing the same thing. Right? We were both out partying. She happened to be driving. We had the accident. She wasn't hurt. I was hurt badly, and have dealt with that for the last however long it's been. I guess 33 years now. But I hadn't really thought about that until just now. Really, that's the same situation. One, I was the one that caused harm, and the other one, I was the one that was harmed. Yeah. And I hold absolutely no ill will to Sarah for that. It was never even crossed my mind, actually.
Really? It wasn't something you even had to really work on. That wasn't.
No, it just was. Damn the luck.
So she probably never came up in any step work.
I saw her out at, I don't even remember where, but she was drinking and I wasn't. And I told her that I'd stopped drinking, and she told me that she'd stopped driving. So.
But I mean, like, you didn't have her in a 4-step, or you didn't have any.
No, it wasn't a resentment. I mean, it really was. I don't know if I, on some level, thought it was karma or something like that. But, I've had lots of accidents. I've had motorcycle accidents. I've had road rash really bad. I've knocked my teeth out 4 different times. I mean, I could, quite a history with drugs and alcohol. It has not been good. Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm happy to be here.
But and that's, from what I understand, a lot of accidents that could have really caused you a lot of harm, and some of them did have caused you some fairly serious injuries. Yeah. That you've came through with. The other thing is, one thing as I look back, that I do believe at some level I survived a lot of things for a reason.
For a reason, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things I could look at and go, whew, that was a close call.
It's important for me with this today is that I didn't gain a higher power. I mean, I got a better understanding, and I got a connection and a reliance. That's one thing I always say is like that reliance. That's that thing of being that I know it's okay, that reliance. The connection don't mean shit to me if I can't rely on it.
Right. If I'm more self-reliant than God-reliant, then what am I doing?
So I had to be, that's that peace of mind where that I can know that I'm okay today. But I also look back and I see where I was also being carried throughout, that footprints in the sand kind of poem that I had been carried a lot through some things that just didn't plop in my life when I decided to stop drinking.
So true. Absolutely. And talking about the 8th and the 9th step, I would be remiss if I didn't, talk about my kids. And it says that we're going to, not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. And I don't want to shut the door on it because I've been able to help some people with my experience. But I certainly have some regrets.
Yeah.
And that'll make me tear up in a heartbeat. But I've gone to both my kids and sat down and talked to them and owned what I needed to own. I can't fix some of the things that have happened, but what I can do is be an example of what recovery looks like and be available and show up. And my job is to continue to do that, to just show up in their lives and be available. So.
Yeah, that's I like the words not regret the past. Does it say? It says we don't wish to shut the door on it, right? Mm-hmm. That wish is maybe in the regrets part too.
Maybe.
I don't wish to regret the past, but the fact of the matter is, I think you'll always carry some of that. I'm free today. And I can say that. My spirit has been freed from that, and I'm a pretty free dude today. Mm-hmm. I don't walk around with that weight on me that I used to. I can't really say that. Mm-hmm. But certainly there's moments in my life that I still, there's things that I regret.
Mm-hmm. At least cringe, right? Cringe at the thought.
And some of them is not necessarily something like that, just a flat out mistake, but things that I know got taken away from me from my alcohol use and my addiction. Mm-hmm. One of the things is I came really close to being an Eagle Scout, and I stopped short of that.
Right.
And I look back today and I know that that was a lot of that was a time when I started smoking a lot of pot and started down the path. Mm-hmm. I had a promising basketball career.
Right, and just changed the direction of your life, right?
Kicked off the basketball team, so those things are hard not to regret. Mm-hmm. They don't carry weight really anymore. That's the other thing. That's this. I've heard that said before that the stuff is still there. It just doesn't weigh on me like it used to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it certainly doesn't pile up. That's the other thing, like a combined weight. Now it's looked at as these individual elements and stuff. Yeah, and it's this and it's this and this, rather than these individual events. Rather than, I think at some point it was looked at more as far as my weight that it was on, that I carried, was those things were like all on me concurrently.
Right. Yeah. This big ball and chain that I'm carrying around. I don't have to do that today. That's for sure. I had a great thought and I lost it. Doggone it, it's going to make this whole podcast.
Yeah. Well, I heard somebody say something the other day that if you have a thought and you lose it, you change the subject. So I actually was talking to a guy last night about meditation, and it dawned on me that maybe we can use since we get to do our own conception of a higher power, and why can't I do my own conception of what meditation is, right?
Right.
You get to make that shit up too, and I know that sounds a little loose and goosey about that with the higher power, and I get to make it up as I go. But the truth of the matter is I do.
Yeah. I
really do. It's my old teaching that makes me not be able to be totally free with that. But I can do the same thing with meditation. What do we say? A lot of things is where our intention is, right?
Right.
If I'm going to decide that this particular activity is meditation for me, and that's my intention, I don't know why I can't do that.
I think you can.
And
I think for me, exercise is a form of meditation.
Sure, yeah, yoga is a meditation for me for sure, absolutely. Now, for me also, I need that quiet. I need personally some still quiet time in my life that is geared intentional meditation. whether if it's even guided with sound or actual quiet. I need that stilling of the mind thing in my life, in addition to like yoga.
Yeah. And
By
what I
woodworking, I
like
do
to
that.
think of is, I'm making that conscious contact. I'm taking the time to have a relationship with my higher power, and I can consciously make contact, if you will.
I feel that way with my woodworking too. When I get into the zone, when I'm in the flow, and everything is like turned off, pretty much. It's I have a sole focus. And it's similar to what meditation in a way, I'm trying to narrow my focus during meditation. I'm trying to get pinpoint kind of laser accuracy on a stillness of breath, and, trying to do that deal where we're
just get the clutter
quieting
out,
the
right?
mind and not having a million things being thought of at the same time. Whether if I'm doing any kind of thing, whether, maybe a guy does needlepoint or cross stitch or color. For a long time, I was really getting a lot of value out of coloring mandalas. Coloring.
Yeah.
It was just.
I've heard that
before.
Yeah.
It was quieting and soothing, and then I had something pretty at the end when I was done, and I would carry. That's something I could carry around too, man. I could take a couple of different pens and like have them with me in early recovery, and like be in a meeting at work, and mindlessly color to kind of settle me, but still be present in the meeting because I can hear. So I'm not like I'm doing anything that would like take my attention completely away, but it would like
settle you down a little bit.
Yeah, because I still struggle with that in meetings at work. I want to jump up and stomp on the table and tell everybody the way it ought to be.
I bet. I work for myself, so I don't have to worry too much about all that. I'm very grateful for that because I'm not sure I'd be very good at it.
Yeah, I think I remember when I first met you, you told me you were unemployable.
I had to buy my job. Yeah, and that's probably more true than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. So that big thought ain't come back yet?
Beg your pardon?
That big thought hasn't come back yet?
No, but I've got so many great things. I've got so many great things to talk about. When I think about my recovery, it's not just about not drinking and not using drugs. It's about how I'm treating my body, what I'm putting in it, if I'm working out, my finances. Am I being crazy with my money? Am I not paying my bills on time just because I'm procrastinating? It's really looking at my whole life and see if it's calm or is there some chaos, and chaos pops up for sure, but I can look at that and go, okay, let's settle this down and fly right and not let things get so out of hand that I get jumbled up and get confused or get so anxious that I'm gonna run out and do something stupid. So, and that exercise is a big piece for me. I mean, I definitely work out 3 or 4 times a week, and I feel like it's balanced, and it's a good thing for me to do for my health and for my body and for my mind. It really helps settle myself down as far as getting rid of some of that energy and anger and angst, and getting some sweat on is good.
Yeah, there's a line in the big book that I think it's in the doctor's opinion or something. Anything that leaves out this physical factor. Now I know what he's saying in there is a little different, but I always do look at maybe how these things maybe mean more than just the one thing. Like I said earlier about I've said like the regret in the past and that, and then and I said something a little bit earlier about another one that I thought sounded a little that could be looked at a couple different angles. The physical factor, any recovery that leaves out the physical factor, I think you're leaving something on the table once again.
Right.
I'm in a position right now where now that I've like invested in yoga in myself,
right,
I'm starting to attract some guys doing yoga. And I don't think it's a fluke. I'll just say what I believe. I believe it because these guys are doing some kind of physical thing, especially because they're doing it and with something that's like a spiritual practice, which is what yoga is. They're getting that mind, body, spirit thing, and they're taking care of the physical side. That they're achieving some recovery quicker, and their body's healing faster, their mind's healing faster. Because of addressing that physical factor, you know? And with that, just automatically. So if you're it's like that thing about says if you want self-esteem, you got to do esteemable things, right? So I mean, when we're taking care of ourselves, we feel good, right? And when we feel good, we want to feel better, right? And when we're feeling good, we say dang, man, I'll probably not really be eating that. I should probably be eating this instead. I work my ass off all week long,
right,
or whatever, to take care of myself, and then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to eat this crap all the time. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. I do a lot of that, but it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And I know we still will, but no, you don't eat crap. I mean, you'll have, again, that another line of that book says we are not saints, right? It doesn't mean that we got to get into some kind of ascetic lifestyle where we're going to sleep on a bed of nails because that's the holy way or whatever. I can have a cheeseburger, I can have a piece of
donut.
cake.
That would be mine.
A donut, right, a Coke. I'm not a big soft drink fan, but once in a while I'll see one. My son loves Cokes. We keep them around the house. And I'm like, that looks good for some reason, and I will have me a Coke. I will do it in secret. I won't let anybody see me doing that.
When I'm looking for a sponsor, if I'm looking around for some female buddies, I do take a look at are they severely overweight? Are they smoking? Those kind of addictions are simply addictions for me, and I've got to watch the whole broad spectrum. It's not just about drugs and alcohol for me.
Yep, that was certainly another thing that came along. I was a big-time nicotine user all the way through for all my life. I really didn't give it a lot of thought. And then, some almost 500 days ago, I put down the dip.
Yeah.
And it was the same kind of thing. I'm up, I don't know if I told this story, but it doesn't make any difference. So I'm sitting working with a sponsee, and I'm talking to a guy across the table about, I love Bob Earl's line about improve the quality of my life in recovery. And that's that's another one of my goals is to continue to improve the quality of my life in recovery. How can I do that? That key word, to continue.
Right.
And while I'm doing that, I got a big old jaw full of dip, and I'm spitting in a cup. And it hit me like
So
a ton
gross.
of bricks that day of going, I visualize it now of like, you gotta improve the quality of your life in recovery, and spitting mid-sentence in it, and I don't doubt that was really happening, but it just hit me. I mean, and I remember the guy was like, I'm like looking at that cup all of a sudden, and like, what a hypocrite, you're telling this guy across the table. And for whatever reason, that's a really, if I really want to carry this message, and again, I'm not, I don't want to make it like it's a motive driven kind of thing, but I want to be as effective. The book says to grow in understanding and effectiveness. It's another thing the Alcoholics Anonymous book says. And if I can do something that's going to help me be more effective in carrying this message, it has occurred to me that I need to put some things down,
right,
and also by proxy pick some new things up.
Because I have no idea who said this, but when I'm blocking my feelings, whether it's with nicotine or with sugar or with booze or with drugs, I'm blocking the things I don't want to think about, but I'm also blocking the joy that could come in.
If you're numbing the bad, you're also numbing the good.
Who said that?
Brene Brown.
Ah, good. I like it.
That's who I heard say it anyway.
I'll buy that.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure it's not exactly that, but it's really close to that. I can't numb the bad without numbing the good. Also.
Right. There's a lot of good stuff today.
Yeah. Anything else to say?
I got nothing. I'm good.
You ran out of juice?
I don't know if I'm out of juice, but I feel complete.
Do you have any thoughts on maybe where things might be going for you?
That's interesting. Kind of loaded too, I think, but
no, it wasn't either.
No,
it really wasn't. I now see what you mean by that, but no, it wasn't. Well, I think
it's an interesting thought because do I? Meditating this morning was talking about intention and attention. The intention is for the future. What am I intending to do? I'm intending to help other people stay sober, help my kids, and I'm also I have an intention on staying in this relationship with you and progressing to the next stage and not having that outcome in my mind, but just having that intention of whatever it is, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And then where my attention needs to be is it needs to be on today and how I'm treating people and how I'm pedaling in the right direction.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on. Another one of those things is dance with the one that brought me. These recovery tools got me here.
Yeah.
And just because, I somehow in the same way that I have this gift on looking at faces and names and remembering that, a lot of these little goofy things stop into my mind too, as far as being able to retain these little sayings. One that struck me real hard was that, and these are all real simple things, and I will take credit for none of them. I've heard them other places and picked them up. I think I did invent one saying, and I can't remember what it was. I can't let the things that AA gave me get in the way of my AA life.
Right.
I can't, because that's the thing where we start thinking we're okay.
Right. I got all this stuff back.
And I start replacing, I like that. I'd heard that someplace before, but it had been a long time. I'd forgotten that one about getting back problems, like getting my things back.
Right.
Suddenly
we're okay.
Real good friend of mine at work does the same thing, and he will freely admit it, that once he's got his stuff back,
game on.
Yeah. He's still, and this guy's still sober, but he's stopped. He's put down all his tools. He's not doing anything anymore. And best, and I'll take him as face value. He's a good friend that he is doing that. But he will freely say, I got all my shit back.
Yeah. I guess it's just how much do you want? How much juice do you want?
It really is that, if you're willing to settle, and that's another thing about the lineage and the people that I'm hanging around with, that none of us, all of us that do this thing. It's another one I stole. This one here's from Mark Houston. He says, I smell more.
Yeah.
And I do. I continue to smell more, and I keep on getting to have more, and I know it ain't about collecting stuff.
No.
But I keep on having, my one little podcast I have out there is my miracle list, and it keeps on growing.
That. Yeah.
And it needs, it deserves an update today. Because as I said, with Christopher's podcast was that being able to do these podcasts, we've been out, I think, I've been losing track of time, but it's short of 2 months. It's 6 or 7 weeks now since I first broadcast the podcast, and I'm creeping up on 1,000 listens.
Right. Isn't that fantastic?
And how cool is that? And people coming up and talking to me and telling me about that. They love the podcast, or I'm getting feedback in places,
Right.
So,
as a matter of fact, Jessica, my oldest daughter, talked to her today, and she listened to 2 of the podcasts, and we had a nice conversation about that. It's pretty cool stuff.
Super cool. I mean, who ever thought that? So that's what I mean about the more, right? I just keep on keeping myself receptive, working these tools that have come to me, keep on being open. I visualize like peeking around the corner like a kid about what's around the next corner.
And it's exciting, right?
And it is exciting, almost like kind of like. So here's like a visual of like when you come in as a kid and you knew the Christmas tree was around in the other room, but there's a wall. And you got this anticipation of like peeking around that corner, and you know that there's something. You don't know exactly what's around there, but you do know that there's something really good around there. And the anticipation is almost as good as the actual achieving it, right?
Right.
So you're like that. That's the way I look at a lot of things in life. Is like that anticipatory peek around the corner at the Christmas tree on Christmas morning.
Right.
That you get to. It's going to be around there, and it's the same thing with that living in abundance rather than scarcity.
Well, yeah, and when I look
then
at
you think
the
there's
future,
a damn rabid dog around the corner.
Right. You're going to be attracting that fear.
Yeah.
And the things that, absolutely. If I'm thinking things are going to be okay, they're probably going to be okay. But when you were talking about Christmas, my childhood was pretty crazy. Dad was a raging alcoholic, and my mom was totally addicted to being pissed off at him and everybody else. And so there was a lot of chaos. And one of the things at Christmas, because they could never get like around to wrapping anything, our Christmas presents were just laid out. So we'd wake up in the morning and walk in, and there was a lot of stuff, but nothing was wrapped. So everything was just laid out. So that anticipation of opening one gift at a time or something didn't happen. It was just like you walked into this, and it was fantastic, but for a long time I was like, man, they just couldn't get it together.
Yeah.
But I look back on it now, and it was really, it was some pretty cool mornings, waking up and seeing the teddy bear and the pink sleeping bag and different toys, and it's all just bam right there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's when you said about like unwrapping them one present at a time. That's that same kind of anticipation. You don't want to. I never did want to like open them up too fast.
Oh, so that's
right?
crazy. That's crazy talk.
It was like getting to the end, and that's the same way I feel about a recovery thing. If I thought there was a finish line out there, I would start going slower.
Yeah,
because I don't want to get to the finish line, even if it existed. I know it doesn't, but that is one of the. I really do think that there's like this is a limit. The book says that too. This is I barely scratched a limitless load that will produce the rest of my life as long as I continue to mine it and give it all away.
Very good. Very impressive.
Yeah. I threw the one I'm out to the other day at work. It's just almost probably shouldn't even be on here, but it did. So I sit there and I talked about some things at the work, and a guy, we were having some issues, and I had to actually, I recognized because of this program that I had set this stuff in motion, right? And so I looked at the couple guys that are standing there. These are not people in AA, but the guy I was just talking about that has some recovery, and he's not going currently, but he sits across the aisle from me, and so he remembers this stuff. And I said to him, and I said, and I looked up at these two people that are just totally clueless, right? And I said, yeah, you know what I did? I set in motion trains of circumstance that caused me, darn it, now I lost it. Set in motion trains of circumstance that caused me misfortune I felt I didn't deserve.
Wow, right?
And they're both looking at you, they're like, is that dude a poet? Or
No, just the big book.
Yeah. I'm pretty open with it, and I may have told him where I got that after a minute, and I could see like the look on their eyes when you drop shit like that in somebody's lap, because I started something that, just like the boomerang that Bill talks about.
Right.
It whooped around and it come and hit me. And today, at least, I'm like got this deal where I can actually see that that's what's happened. I'm not on the bottom of the victim pile anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I don't have to be ashamed
of this happened to me.
Right.
God, why does this shit always happen to me?
Yeah.
I said, no, man. I didn't know when I lost that boomerang out there it was come around to hit me, but sure as hell did.
Sure as hell did. Yeah.
Microphones are fun, aren't they? Especially once you get going. We'll have to continue to do some more. So I steal this off of Steve Ranella, is a guy that does hunting podcasts, and he is one of my favorite podcast guys. I just like the way his stuff is conversational, down home. He reminds me of this Southern Indiana hillbilly with the way he talks and all that. So he always says, you want to go around and got any concluders?
Concluders.
Yeah, so we'll close this thing up and I'll do a couple more commercials unless you got something else. Or else you never gonna rush.
No.
I can always kind of feel when we've cresting towards the end.
Yeah,
And as
I could tell some more stories, and but really, I think I've said everything that I want to say. And in conclusion, yeah, I'm just not real good at that. I can't think of anything that's gonna like be a big bang to go out with.
Get a sponsor, work the steps.
There you go. Okay, get a sponsor, work the steps, meditate.
Practice
and try to help other people. I mean, really, if I had anything, actually, that's what I would say. If I could only do one thing tomorrow, it'd be find someone to help.
Yeah. Yep. And, if it's helping in with this, that's great. But
helping with the spirit is what I meant. I mean, I'm certainly, I could probably help someone by opening a door or whatever. But really, what gives me juice is helping someone
grow spiritually,
whatever that
absolutely.
means.
If you can get into that, whatever that means. Definitely I always beat that drum at you that I make sure that people understand when I'm saying grow spiritually. I'm not talking about religion necessarily, though. If that is what works for a person, that is fine. We'll take that too. What I mean when I say grow spiritually is by this spirit that's inside of me, continue to heal it, set it free, so that I can be that person that the universe has made me to be. I think we all deserve all the juice we can get. And that's what really that's what our journey is truly. I think this working on getting to be to have your spirit be as free as it can possibly be.
Yeah,
live
for
in
me,
your
I
truth,
would say
stand in your integrity, be
closer
authentic.
to God, right? The soul's journey for me is to get closer to my higher power and everybody can choose their own.
Yeah. That's why this 12-step stuff and this giving this around way to a sponsee and passing along this message is so fulfilling, because you are treating someone's spirit. Mm-hmm. You are directly doing that. Not to mention, you're like the perimeter, the collateral benefit that happens when you help this person, because their kids get helped and their parents get helped and their
absolutely
their employer and everybody around them. So you get to play this part. Just I like to say, you heard people say again, a tool in the master's hand. I get to be that instrument. Mm-hmm. And man, there's just nothing more fulfilling than that. Truly is my primary purpose today, is to stay sober and help other people recover from whatever I can help them recover from. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna. My primary purpose does not limit itself to substance abuse, alcoholism. That it is to help people recover that soul that's been lost, that spirit that I was just speaking about.
Right. Show some love.
That is where it's at. We were talking last night. There's a piece of my recovery that really hinged on meditation. There was a time when that was probably the most fulfilling thing I was doing. I could tell it had a bigger impact in my life than anything else I was doing. I was sober, but I was growing through a meditation practice, and it was really changing me. Yeah. Today it's my sponsorship. Mm-hmm. It is, and it's just carrying this message, like these podcasts and doing this part of it. Mm-hmm. The things I do for my home group, the service stuff I do for that, those things where I'm actually really participating in my recovery, have a direct impact on other people. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm really getting. That's where that's the cornerstone of my recovery today. Certainly my foundation.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So the tail end of it almost be about me more than you.
That's okay.
I do want these things to be conversational. We can set up one microphone and I could just sit across the room and let somebody talk.
Yeah, he wants that. Right, we can go to AA and hear a speaker.
Yeah, in the monologue of speaker tapes on the radio or on the internet. You can listen to those all you want to. I think this is something a little bit unique of this interview style of somebody telling their story.
Well, it really helps me because I do get, tongue-tied, or I can't remember the sequence of things, and it's confusing to me. And so just the conversation aspect. Got somebody of it else that I can look at you and go, "You're going to have to pick it up. I have no idea what I'm going to say next." Yeah,
I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, you're just a good talker.
Yeah. I can talk pretty decent today.
That's good.
I will accept that.
Mm-hmm. It's a compliment.
I had to say that wasn't me. That's post recovery.
It's hard to believe. You sit across the table from somebody, or you're in a meeting and you look across the room and you see who they are today, and then you hear parts of their story or their host story, and it's just hard to believe it's the same person.
Yeah, it is. There's a complete revolution.
Yes.
People transform.
Psychic change.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will close it up. I'll do my little commercials. These are non-paid commercials too. These are just people that's helping us out in ways to get this message out. So don't misunderstand what that is. I will hit on that 12-step spiritual recovery. James Christopher Cohn on Amazon. We will be starting a meeting. I don't know if you're listening to this, and some of this will be dated time-wise, but on March the 14th in Louisville, Kentucky, at the Unity Church at 7:30 p.m. That's a Thursday night, March 14th. We will be having the inaugural meeting and plan to continue having them on Thursday nights and other meetings branching out from there. So once again on Amazon, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery. Go to spiritualunderground.org for show notes, pictures. You can also have links to the podcast on there. See ones that are coming up. I got like the ones that are loaded up and ready to play soon are on there also. A contact me page there where you can send me an email. And the music that's accompanying the most recent podcast that I've been getting a lot of good feedback on. Everybody seems to be liking it. I like it too.
I love it.
I just hadn't really given it a lot of thought. I've had this stuff for a while. Actually, I've had it in my phone in the playlist. And when somebody reminded me of it, I looked at it. I guess because it's, well, I really don't know. I'm going to guess because it's independently produced music. It's somehow or another fell off during an update or a sync. And so I had to get it back again.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But I have it back again now. So you're hearing Darren Frank, he is my grand sponsor. Another buddy of ours, Jesse, had helped him produce this music that you'll hear at the beginning and end of these tapes, and I'm trying to goad those guys into recording some new stuff for me too. And
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so that we can continue to grow this homegrown thing and put more of our flavor into it. We have a fantastic group of guys around me, and I'm forever grateful for them. I want them participating in my recovery in whatever manner I can squeeze out of them. So that is cool stuff. We will sign off, and if you're so inclined, listen to that song that's going to follow up after this. You're listening to Dan's Spiritual Underground Podcast. Peace out.
Thanks, baby.
Except for me, I'm strutting on the right. They stand around all day and curse the darkness. I open up both arms and grab the light. God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free. Keep your opinions, I don't need them. What's right for you doesn't work for me. Oftentimes they say live in the real world. But take a look at what that's done for you. Got you all balled up and rolling round in circles. Keep your real world and that narrow view. God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free. Keep your opinions, I don't need them. What's right for you doesn't work for me. Just go your own way, 'cause you always have a choice. Sing along with your song, 'cause I love to hear your voice. Follow what's in your heart and always speak the truth. Be individual, I'm individual. How about you? One more time, God bless the one who's individual. Shine on and let your soul fly free. Keep your opinions, I don't need